I was parked outside the grocery store, halfway through a cold soda, when I saw flashing lights in my mirror. Not real police lights. These were party store strobes duct-taped to the roof of a golf cart. The guy behind the wheel wore a vest that said Perimeter Patrol in crooked letters, like it had been ironed on 5 minutes ago. He swerved to block my car, jumped out like he was on an episode of Cops, and shouted, "You're in violation of local perimeter code." Then he waved a fake badge the size of a coaster and reached for a pair of zip ties like he was about to make a citizen's arrest. That's when I calmly reached into my glove box, pulled out my real badge, and flipped it open right in his face. "You just tried to detain the town inspector," I said, keeping a straight face. "Congrats, genius." He froze, eyes wide, golf cart still running. For a second, I thought he might actually try to finish the arrest, but instead, he bolted. Peeled off down the parking lot doing maybe 8 miles an hour. I sat there, watching him vanish, wondering what kind of fake authority thinks it can mess with the real deal. That's when I realized. This wasn't just a guy with too much free time. This was the start of something way bigger. It was one of those lazy afternoons where nothing important was supposed to happen. No meetings, no reports, no calls from dispatch. I was off the clock, driving my beat-up sedan that rattled anytime I turned too sharp. I hadn't shaved in a few days, and I was wearing my oldest cargo shorts and a Nickelback t-shirt that had survived at least 3 garage sales, the kind of outfit that made even my own deputies squint before recognizing me. That was the point. I liked blending in, especially on days like this when my biggest decision was whether to get an iced coffee or just go home and take a nap. I didn't feel like a sheriff. I felt like a regular guy who might have just finished mowing the lawn badly. There was nothing official about me in that moment, which is probably why what happened next caught me off guard. When I saw that ridiculous golf cart roll up with lights flashing and a guy in a dollar store uniform yelling about violations, I almost didn't take it seriously. But sometimes, dumb luck shows up wearing reflective sunglasses and holding a clipboard. And on that day, I was dressed just right to see how far the crazy would go before someone called it out. I had just pulled into the parking spot next to the pharmacy when I saw him. This guy in a golf cart with flashing red and blue lights that looked like they came from a kid's birthday party. He rolled right up behind me, blocked me in, and started shouting like I was in the middle of a high-speed chase. I thought it was a joke at first. The guy couldn't have been more than 5'7", wearing a reflective vest that read Perimeter Security Agent in faded letters. I leaned out my window and asked, "Perimeter of what? The strip mall?" He didn't laugh. He didn't even blink. He just raised a clipboard and barked, "You're in violation of Section 14C, aggressive parking angle and visible rust." I looked at him, then at my 15-year-old Fender, which, yeah, had some rust. But come on. That's a violation now? I thought about driving away just to see if he'd try to follow me in his battery-powered golf cart, but curiosity got the better of me. He took a step closer and tapped a plastic badge clipped to his vest, like that was supposed to mean something. "License and registration now," he said, puffing up his chest like a mall cop in a superhero movie. Then he reached for a set of zip ties hanging off his belt. That's when I realized this guy wasn't just pretending to be someone. He believed it. He actually thought he had the right to arrest people. I stayed still, partly because I was stunned, partly because I wanted to see just how far he was willing to go with this nonsense. He was mid-rant about something called visual perimeter compliance when I decided I'd had enough. He had one hand on his zip ties and the other still clutching that clipboard like it was a shield. I opened my glove box slowly, like I was going to hand him my registration. Instead, I pulled out my badge, flipped it open and held it right up to his face. "You just tried to detain a city official," I said calmly. "Nice job." For a second, he just stood there, blinking. You could almost see the gears turning in his head, trying to figure out if this was part of his script. Then his eyes went wide, and without saying a word, he spun around and ran back to his golf cart. No apology, no explanation, just pure panic. He floored it out of the parking lot, tires squealing slightly as he sped off at maybe 10 miles an hour. It looked like a slow chase scene from a kid's movie. I stood there watching him disappear around the corner, thinking, this guy wasn't just messing around. He really thought he was in charge. And that meant there was probably more where he came from. At first, I thought the whole thing was just a one-time run-in with a guy who took his part-time security job way too seriously. But a few days later, things got weird. I got a call from an older lady who lives on the edge of town. Sweet woman, bakes cookies for every holiday. She was shaking when she told me a security officer had shown up at her door with a citation for violating a wind chime noise ordinance. I asked her if she even had wind chimes. She did, but they were made of plastic butterflies. Said they made more of a clink than a chime. Then a man called to say his mailbox was flagged for being overly patriotic. His exact words, "I had 2 flags and a small eagle sticker." That's it. Each story got stranger. A guy told me he was warned about his driveway being too casually sloped. Another said someone took pictures of his yard while measuring his grass. All of them described the same look: reflective vests, clipboards, some with fake radios, all acting like they were above the law. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just some wannabe security guard. This was a group. They were organized, they had fake rules, and they believed they had real power. And it looked like the whole neighborhood was already living under their fake authority. I wanted answers, so I went where the trouble usually starts. One of those neighborhood board meetings that's supposed to be about planting flowers and fixing sidewalks. I showed up wearing a plain hoodie and glasses, trying not to look like the guy with a badge. The meeting was held in a community clubhouse that smelled like lemon cleaner and stale cookies. People sat in plastic chairs, holding tiny handouts with rules printed in size 10 font. It looked harmless on the surface, but the vibe was off. The board members sat behind a folding table, straight-faced and stiff, like they were guarding state secrets instead of talking about fence heights. Then I heard it. A man stood up to complain that he'd gotten 4 citations in a week, and the board president just nodded and said, "We'll escalate this to Code 77A. No one reacted, but I saw a few people shift in their seats like that number meant more than it should. I scribbled it down. Code 77. A wasn't in the rulebook I picked up at the door. Whatever it wasn't public. Later, as I was leaving, I overheard 2 board members whisper about Director Z and how they'd handle it tomorrow. Not fix it, handle it. That's when I realized this wasn't a neighborhood board. It was a secret club with its own rules and leaders no one voted for. And if you pushed too hard, you didn't get help. You got handled. I couldn't shake the feeling that this whole thing went higher than just a bunch of bored neighbors with clipboards. So I started digging. Quietly. Pulled records, looked at board appointments, followed names I'd heard at the meeting. And that's when I found something that made my stomach turn. The name behind almost every major decision tied to this fake enforcement mess kept popping up. Tom Harland, city planning advisor, longtime local leader, and my wife's uncle. The same guy who used to bring over ribs for every barbecue, who gave me a cheesy, world's best grillmaster apron one Father's Day. That guy. I ran his name through the council logs. He'd helped appoint every member of the current board, even funded the group behind the so-called Neighborhood Security Initiative. It wasn't random. It was planned. The same man who once pulled me aside to brag about his new weed killer had somehow helped build a network of fake enforcers with made-up rules and actual power. I didn't know what hurt more. Finding out this went deeper than I thought, or realizing someone from inside my own family helped start it. The man who taught me how to grill steaks on the 4th of July also installed lawn camera surveillance across half the town. Go figure. The next morning, I was sipping coffee on my porch when I heard them coming. 4 golf carts rolling slow in a line, like they were in some kind of parade. Except this wasn't for fun. Each one had 2 guys in matching vests and sunglasses, radios clipped to their shoulders, and clipboards held like weapons. They parked right in front of my house, lined up like they were about to breach a fortress. One of them stepped out and started taking photos of my mailbox from every angle. Another pulled out a tape measure and got down in my yard, checking the height of my grass like it might be dangerous. A third guy stood by my porch and scribbled something while staring at my lawn decorations. He didn't say anything at first, just squinted at my gnome. Then finally muttered, "This display is provocative." I looked at him, dead serious, and said, "You want a rake or a reality check?" They didn't laugh. They just kept writing. One even pulled out a small laser level and held it to the sidewalk like he was inspecting a crime scene. I stayed calm, but inside I was boiling. This wasn't just petty anymore. They weren't just watching. They were testing me, pushing to see how far I'd let them go. And the sad part? They really thought they were in charge. I decided if they were going to keep playing games, I'd give them a show worth watching. That night, I got to work. I dragged out every piece of lawn junk I could find, painted my mailbox neon green, left the trash cans by the curb 3 days early, even set up a kiddie pool in the front yard with a floating cooler full of empty soda cans. For the main event, I added plastic flamingos, glow sticks, and one of those spinning sprinkler heads. My lawn looked like a crime scene from a garden party rave. But the real setup was hidden. I placed 2 cameras, one behind the bird bath, one in the fake rock near the driveway. Both fed live to a secure cloud folder and a private channel I'd set up for the city prosecutor. I wasn't just trying to annoy them. I was daring them to come back and do exactly what they'd been doing. Except this time it'd all be on tape. Real audio, real video, real proof. When I stepped back and looked at it all, it was honestly ridiculous. But I knew it would work. I'd baited the hook with the kind of stuff they couldn't resist writing up. And all I had to do now was wait for the clipboard parade to roll back through. Because this time, I was ready. The footage worked better than I expected. Within hours of the fake officers marching across my lawn like they were in some kind of HOA SWAT team, I had everything I needed. Clear video of them shouting fake laws, trying to detain me, and acting like they owned the whole street. I sent the clips straight to the city prosecutor's office. But I wasn't done. I needed to know who was behind all of it. Not just the clipboard warriors, but the one giving the orders. That's when Nancy came forward. She used to be part of the board before she walked away. Said it got too weird. She met me at a quiet diner with a flash drive tucked in her purse. What was on it hit harder than I expected. Email chains with code names, hidden budgets funneled through fake maintenance projects, and worst of all, footage from cameras planted inside people's homes. Bedrooms, kitchens, even baby monitors. None of it was legal. All of it was connected to someone at the top. Turns out, the leader behind all this wasn't just some nosy neighbor. It was the mayor. The same person who smiled at every ribbon cutting and handed out safety flyers at school events. She had built the entire thing. Encrypted emails, dummy companies, surveillance feeds from inside houses. This wasn't lawn enforcement. It was regime control in khaki shorts. And it had to end. I called a press conference on the steps of City Hall. No fancy speech, no smiling behind a podium. I just told the truth. The town had been watched, lied to, and pushed around by people pretending to care about flower beds while spying through hidden cameras. I held up the flash drive and said exactly what I'd seen. Fake cops, planted surveillance, secret budgets, and a mayor who had turned neighborhood rules into weapons. People in the crowd started whispering. Some looked shocked. Others just nodded, like they'd known something was off for a long time but couldn't prove it. Then I said it out loud. This wasn't about tidy sidewalks. It was about freedom. The freedom to paint your fence the color you like. The freedom to hang a wind chime without getting fined. The freedom to fly a dragon kite without being written up. And that's when it broke. Someone clapped. Then others joined. A few cheered. Even the guy who once measured his grass with a ruler started tearing up. That's when the unmarked cars pulled up. The mayor tried to slip away, but we were ready. The officers moved in fast and quiet. She didn't yell. She didn't fight. She just looked at me like I'd ruined something perfect. But she was wrong. What she built wasn't perfect. It was control dressed up as order. And the town was finally done with it. That day, the lines were clear. No more hiding behind fake laws or phony uniforms. We took back our streets, one gnome at a time. A week after the arrests, things finally started to feel normal again. No more fake patrols. No more surprise citations for how high someone's grass grew. The town was breathing easier, like it had finally woken up from a long, weird dream. I was locking up the station one night when I noticed something on the floor. An envelope, just barely slid under the door. No name, no return address. Inside was a plain black flash drive. I plugged it in, half expecting nothing. But there it was. One folder, one file. The title read, Unified Enforcement Phase 2. No details, no dates, just that name. Whatever was behind it hadn't given up. They were already thinking about coming back, maybe bigger, maybe quieter. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen for a while. Then I pulled the drive out and put it in a drawer. Didn't panic, didn't call anyone, just smiled. Let them try. Because now the town knew what to look for. And I'd be waiting.